You want me to...
Marido.
Thank you.
Olá.
One. We won't respond immediately to those questions and comments. We'll collect them all at once. And meanwhile, we'll be listening and taking mental notes. And we will conclude the debate with a brief discussion of some of the points that you've raised. And again, while we're discussing, we want you to listen really carefully, because at the end, we're going to vote. And we're going to see who has been the most convincing. Good luck.
Thank you.
So I will introduce both of our speakers first, and then Clara will begin. So Clara Prado first graduated in law and multimedia communication, and she's now finalizing her third degree in languages, Portuguese and English. Wow, I know. She has a specialization in theories of education, a master's in education and arts, and a doctorate in applied linguistics. Her research focuses on the use of technology and teacher training. She's worked as an English teacher for over 15 years in language institutes and private tutoring, as well as a writer and a translator for various publishers. For Cambridge University Press, she is an author of the 5th edition of Interchange, and she's written various articles for the Better Learning blog. That's in the red corner. In the blue corner, the other contender is Alberto Costa, and Alberto holds the Cambridge RSA Diploma for Overseas Teachers of English and has a specialization in teacher training, Princelts, from the College of St. Mark and St. John in Plymouth, UK. He's worked as a speaking examiner, a teacher trainer, and an academic consultant for 30 years, which I still don't believe.
I don't either.
He has also worked as a tutor for the teaching qualifications CELTA, iCELT, and Delta. He's toured the country giving workshops and teacher development courses for the main publishing houses in the ELT market, and he regularly presents in several ELT forums and conferences every year in Brazil. So can I please ask for a round of applause to welcome our speakers to the stage?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And first, Clara, would you like to do your absolute best to convince us of the value of having a university degree in languages to become a language teacher?
I'm going to win, but you can hear to him, but
Wait.
I plan to win. I really do.
Go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. It would be very difficult to be followed by what we just had here, so we are not clowns. And I cannot do what he did, but let's do our best. Thank you very much, Laura, and I'm very happy to be here. When she first asked us to do this, we were very nervous, so we will try to do a good job, although we are intimidated by all of you, but let's see. Okay, so like she talked about a little bit, there are many paths to becoming an English teacher, yes? And I'm pretty sure you all here have amazing stories to tell. Here today we have 2 stories, and Alberto and I will share 2 different paths, and you later choose which one you thought was most convincing. So this is a little bit of a fight, so I hope I win, but you will also have good points. So probably, like many of you, I didn't know what to do with my life. I knew I loved English. I knew I loved people. I knew I loved being creative. So I went to law school. I think that best choice. Yeah? And I finished it. Then I thought, oh, well, I went to communication school. I finished that too. During all this period, I needed to work, so I started teaching English at night. But was I really a teacher? Not really. I think the best definition is I spoke English to people for money. I think that's the best thing to say. So better than English teacher. So do you remember the moment where you finally decided to be a teacher? Well, what I remember is that I had a job in advertising during the day. But at night, I was a different person. A happier person. A person that, well, was a kind of an English teacher. Not yet, well. So I started facing some challenges in the classroom. I had difficult teenagers, like everybody. Students with disabilities, parents asking too many questions, and insecurities that made me start doubting myself a little bit. So I decided to go and take my first specialization in theories of education. I loved it. Then I went on to get a master's in education and art. Double loved it. Then I went on to get my doctorate in applied linguistics. Suffered, but loved it. But then, you might think that after all this time studying, that I wouldn't need to go back to and get my language degree from the university. But you will be wrong, and I plan to tell you why right now. So, why do we study at the university? So why would I go to the university? First of all, the language degree doesn't only make teachers. At school, we have the supervisor, coordinator, director, or even teacher trainer. Yeah? We also have other options with the language degree, which include careers in translating, publishing, advertising, or even international relations. Among many others, of course, you probably have other stories. Okay, so you might say that other majors, not the language studies, could also account for these careers. So for the purpose of this talk, we will focus on language teaching, specifically English teaching. So what do I need in order to be a successful language educator? Well, you need the obvious skill to speak the language. Yeah? But in a language degree, you will not learn to speak English from scratch, at least, but you will perfect what you already have. You will also learn about the culture and literature of the countries that speak the native tongue, in our case, English. So according to Edgar Morin, when you teach another language, you don't only teach a language, but you teach its culture, its knowledge, and you promote a union between two universes. At university, you will learn about history, sociology, philosophy, and policies in education. You will learn how to use different methods and techniques in your teaching. You will acquire pedagogical knowledge. So according to Schumann, there's a big difference between content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge. So content knowledge, in this case, in this scenario that we're talking about, could be the English language, which is focused merely on the content. So the second one that he's talking about is the pedagogical knowledge. So the pedagogical knowledge, the goal is to go beyond just the English in this case, but put you into a place that you have knowledge of teaching approaches and methodology. So it concerns with the ability of the teacher not to speak English, but how does he connect in a way, a meaningful way, to the students, in a way that the student can go beyond just the content. Yeah? So it transports you to other levels of education. That gives you more autonomy as a teacher, to choose the style which better fits your context of teaching. Having autonomy will help you be more flexible and critical of your own practice when you reach the classroom, if you're a student, or when in classroom. Will help you to think more creatively about solutions and problems that you will encounter. So you will also learn to do research, innovate. It's not about applying a method, but it's about how important it is to create technique, to create theory, and to innovate in language teaching. It's to take a more active role. Thus, by following this university path, you will learn how to become independent thinkers. Like Iago and Duran stated, a language degree may be the best strategy for a professional autonomy of a teacher, because it will allow him or her to have a more critical performance when faced with classroom issues. But what are these issues that English teachers might face in the classroom? Well, according to a recent British Council research, which they interviewed a lot of teachers, public teachers here in Brazil, they said that 81% of these teachers revealed that they have trouble using their course material because they feel they're too advanced for their students. Also, they say that the teachers have little support, and the classrooms have no resources. They also complain about the students, saying that some of the students lack of interest for the subject, and the teachers struggle to connect with students in such large classrooms. So, Edgar Morin, when he talks about the future, he says that there are many challenges up ahead. And this is just going to get more complex and more difficult for us to solve. So according to him, education is the force for the future because it's one of the most powerful instruments of change. We need to adjust our thinking to meet the challenges that are increasingly unpredictable in the new world. We need to rethink our way of organizing knowledge. We need to redesign and rethink education in order to accommodate our needs and find solutions to the many issues we will find in the classroom. At the university, with the help of your teachers, theorists, and your peers, you will achieve a deeper level of understanding that will allow you to face the challenges up ahead. Okay, so far we've covered that at the university as a language teacher, you will need to perfect the language that you already have. You will learn how to think critically and reflect upon your practice. You will learn to research and strive for innovation. Anything else? Yes, a lot more. Yeah? You will learn about linguistics and applied linguistics. You will acquire new ways of thinking globally and connect language to global issues and to a global population. You will need to learn how to keep learning, as the university should be the first step. Notice, I didn't even say anything about technology, because if I got started, 10 minutes are not enough. So, we have learned that university, you learn English, you take a more active role, you innovate, you research, you talk about the many problems that you will find in education. You talk about the problems that happen throughout history and now. You learn about pedagogical theories. You read many books, in a variety of subjects. Some that you might like, some not so much. Good luck teaching that in 4 weeks. So in the beginning, I was talking about how I started to be an English teacher and how I took the more academic path to be where I am now with a master's and a doctorate, where I learned about pedagogy, history, philosophy, and all that. I just took a little longer than 4 years. So why do you think now I still need to get a language diploma? After all of this, I shouldn't need to go back to school. But a diploma allows me to teach at school that none of the my other titles do. Yeah? So what am I doing now? Something I should have done a long time ago, accepted that I am an English teacher, and as such, I need to have a language degree. Thank you very much. Now you go.
Thank you, Clara. Obrigada. Nice. So now, you have to do your best, Alberto, to convince our audience that everything Clara said is wrong. That's not the approach to take. You should take a more hands-on route, something similar to your own experience. So when you're ready, over to you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
Well, I'll do my best to convince you that the path that I followed has been the most, I would say, appropriate for becoming a language teacher, especially in this context of English in a globalized world. So, because we are telling our own stories, we have made so many notes that I'll be referring to the notes again and again, right? I still haven't mastered those skills of TED Talk speakers when they speak and they don't look at anything, apparently.
We don't, yeah.
So I started teaching at the age of 18 in Recife. This is where I come from. It was in a language school. I was leaving school at the time, so I was already working as a language teacher. And my initial training involved teaching techniques from the audiolingual method back in the 80s. Obviously, I had no idea what audiolingual meant at the time, and I was trained to drill language using a cassette player and a slides projector. By slides, I don't mean PowerPoint, right? There used to be a machine in which you put thingies, and they were projected against the board, right? So at the time, I had no major aspirations, professionally speaking. I was only 18, and I liked English. I had studied English for a long time. And then I had my first question. What else is there to teach English? I can synchronize the cassette player and the slides projector very well, and my students keep repeating dialogues from the course book, pretending they are character X and character Y. So I guess I was a competent teacher at the time. And then there were like a new set of questions in my mind. And they were about whether I could go any farther as a teacher, as a language teacher, and how. What options were there available at that time? So after 2 years of cassette players and slides projector, etc., I decided to continue in this language teaching path. And then I needed to pursue something. So I decided to change jobs, and then I got a job in this much bigger language school in the city. And the teaching approach in this language school was very different from my initial training. First of all, they told me I had to plan lessons. To plan what? I mean, I came into my previous school, and the slides were there with the course book, and then I had to do all those things. So in order to become familiar with the school's approach to teaching and learning, the coordinator gave me a number of articles about the communicative approach. And then I had to read the articles and discuss the ideas with her. She also gave me a lot of support in terms of planning lessons, organizing students for pair and group work activities, marking the students' writing tasks, for example. And what happened next was I was involved in taking courses. I took the COTI course at the time. It's now known as the ICELT course. And later I took the diploma for overseas teachers of English. It's now called Delta. And then a number of other courses followed on as I remained in the career. In the meantime, I was in the university studying letters, so arts and literature. And I was struggling to see the connections between what I saw in the university classes and language teaching. And I could make very few connections between what I learned in the university and practical language teaching that I was doing for a living. Okay? So it was through those courses that I came to learn a lot about language teaching, pedagogy. I came to learn about approaches and methods, the history of language teaching, applied linguistics, and the theory behind developing language competence, teaching different age groups, teaching learners with different needs and goals, for example, young learners, English for specific purposes, monolingual versus multilingual groups. I learned to design courses for those groups of students. I learned to create course materials. I learned to adapt the course book to meet the needs of those learners. And I also learned how to assess those learners in the 4 skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and not only assessing them in their knowledge of basic grammar. I was also preparing those learners to meet international language standards, like the CEFR, for example, and helping them to perform well in high-stakes international language proficiency exams. So I was allowing the learners to take the opportunity to study or work abroad in English-speaking countries. Of course, Clara, when we talk about a 4-week teacher training course, this is just the starting point of the language teaching career. In spite of its short length, a 4-week course like CELTA, for instance, will give you more than just the practical tools you need to start teaching. It can give you, for example, a number of notions. For example, notions of communicative language teaching, task-based learning, lexical approach. And apart from focusing on grammar and vocabulary, trainee teachers in such courses also learn to focus on language skills, pronunciation teaching, and they will be able to teach and practice rhythm, stress, and intonation. They will also check meaning and concept of the target language, and will be doing so in English in 4 weeks. So, a more robust teaching qualification such as Delta, for example, implies that you have to do a lot of research in order to write your extended assignment, which is very similar to a short dissertation. This is the module 3 of the diploma. You also have to prove that you have solid understanding of terminology related to language learning and teaching and applied linguistics. This is the module 1 where you have the exam. As well as teach effectively and reflect deeply on your teaching. You also have to reflect on your choice of approaches and methods for a specific group of learners. And you have to pinpoint areas for development and document those in lengthy lesson plans and post-lesson reflections and feedback. This is the module 2 of the diploma. And what about all the research that has been done in ELT to back up the existence of such training and development programs? Cambridge, for example, has a number of reference books which we have to read in order to become familiar with the theory and be able to discuss and reflect on teaching and professional development. In their book, Professional Development for Language Teachers, Jack Richards and Thomas Farrell discuss 2 broad kinds of goals in teacher education. One is teacher training. This means all those activities that are directly focused on teachers' present responsibilities and aiming at short-term and immediate goals. And the other one is teacher development, which relates to general growth, not focused on a specific job, and also allowing you to examine different dimensions of a teacher's practice as a basis for reflective review. A novice teacher, for example, will definitely need to make sense of their present responsibilities. They will need to take action the moment they step into the classroom. And teachers will become seasoned once they have experimented with a number of ideas, techniques, approaches, etc., through trial and error, and will then be able to examine the different dimensions of their practice. And this is a construct. So assuming that teachers leaving a teaching degree program will be at teacher development level can be a bit too ambitious. Dr. Douglas Brown, a professor in the MA TESOL program at San Francisco State University, in his book, Teaching by Principles, writes about teacher development, and he dares to propose his own list of good language teaching characteristics. Guess what he proposes as his number 1 characteristic? Technical knowledge. And in this category, he lists understanding the linguistic systems of English phonology, grammar, and discourse, comprehensively grasping basic principles of language learning and teaching, and having fluent competence in speaking, writing, listening to, and reading English. Among others, these are the key initial characteristics. It seems, Clara, that many teaching degrees aim to develop the educator. So far, so good. We all need a degree. Also, undergraduates will be filled with knowledge about pedagogy, history of teaching, policies in education. But how can universities guarantee that they will be ready to teach English without enough training? And how can they guarantee that many of those teachers-to-be will at least learn the language they will be teaching? I could spend my whole life learning about swimming, all the micro skills in swimming, like breathing, movement, styles, and never go into the water to actually prove that I can swim. For many teachers, the 4-week teacher training course has been a common first step into the language teaching career, and it has many positive effects in teaching and learning. For example, for those courses, language proficiency is a key requirement. So these professionals speak the language well and hence provide good models for the learners. Once you embrace this career, there are regular training sessions which we have to attend, so it's easy to keep abreast of things in ELT. Teachers have to master a number of skills as well as a repertoire of teaching and learning techniques. And as you progress in the career, Taking a more advanced language and teaching qualification is a must. We know that this involves a lot of investment from the professional and from the institution. We also developed the ability to teach English to diverse audiences. For example, adults, teens, young learners, exam preparation courses, business English, you name it. It's not just about the school setting. On the other hand, for many teachers, language teaching still remains as a marginal occupation, restricting us to language institutions and keeping us apart from language teaching in compulsory education. However, language teaching is an international profession. Currently, a vast number of positions for language teachers advertised in the UK and Europe requires a 4-week training certificate like CELTA on top of your university degree. So 4 weeks can make a difference for you out there. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for both of your sides of this story. Now it's your turn. My colleagues have microphones, I believe. Someone moving around with a microphone. If you have a question that you'd like to ask specifically to the speakers, now is your chance. If you want to find out a little bit more about what they're basing their claims on. Or equally, we would invite your comments on your own experience. How similar or different has your training and development journey been to Clara's or Alberto's, and how do you feel about it now? Has it prepared you adequately for the challenges that you're facing on a daily basis? If you'd like to comment, can you raise your hand and I'll direct a microphone in your direction. Oh, there's a comment down here at the front. Do you need these microphones there? Thank you.
No problemo.
Testing.
Just here at the front.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Marcio. I'm a teacher for about 10 years. And this is a very important topic that we think about every single day of our lives. And but I see that both parts, they are really important. If you don't have both steps on each part of this discussion, I think we cannot be good teachers. But I believe that, for example, with my experience, the worst problem is in relation to time, because in Brazil, especially in Brazil, it's very hard to conciliate both parts. When you are younger, you have enough time to study, to have an academic degree, or to study more to get a higher degree. But when you, at the step you start working hard, like in my case, I work in language schools and in regular schools. It's really hard to make both together, because it's very difficult for us after some time to have enough time to study and as well be working so hard in this kind of reality the teachers face in Brazil. So my question is, for example, how would, for example, teachers in Brazil conciliate so hard reality? For example, you cannot, if you're a breadwinner at home, you don't have enough time to work a lot, because in Brazil you have to work a lot to be a teacher. Yeah. And as well as we want to sometimes have another kind of course and you can't, because you don't have enough time. And this is my problem nowadays. I'm so sorry to share this private part, but you know, I'm only telling my experience, and this is something that I concern a lot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel that I am stopped, I'm not learning anymore, and I need to learn, but I can't, mm-hmm. because we have so many things to do that it's so hard to conciliate both things. Mm. So that's my point.
Thank you. I think that feeling of not having enough time to do all the development we want is probably something that's very familiar to a lot of us. So thank you for your comment. Other questions and comments, please raise your hand. There's a lady here on the right, to my right, your left.
Good morning.
Good
My
morning.
name is Amanda. I came from Praia Grande, and I got my degree here in, not here, in São Paulo area, but in Santo André. Well, I believed as I was listening to both of them talking about their experiences and their development as teachers, I related a little bit with both of you. And I believe that there is no right path. There is the path we encounter. As Brazilians, we are not always allowed to choose what we want. We are not always allowed to go to the university, and we are not always allowed to get those Cambridge tests. I'm a little nervous right now, sorry.
It's okay.
We all are.
So were we.
I'm listening to my voice bumping, and I'm like, what's going on? But anyways, I wrote some of my thoughts so I wouldn't go crazy as I'm speaking. But what I wrote was, life presents us with challenges and opportunities. It's up to us to make the best we can out of them. And who said we have to choose between one or another path, you know? It's like if life presents you with the opportunity to go into a university and getting a degree, you should do that. And then as you do it, or after you do it, you should get the other part as well, you know? That's what I did. I was never able, because I came from a very poor background, so I was not able to go to language schools. I have never taken an English course in my life, like going to an English as a second language course. I couldn't do that. So I found myself in my first year of the university degree, and I knew nothing of English. And everybody was speaking English, you know? There were a lot of teachers in my class. As you, of course, when you went to get your degree, you're already an English teacher. Mm-hmm. So I believe, of course, you had your challenges with linguistics and everything else, but I did not speak English, you know, so I had to work really hard, and I did. I would work hours upon hours with my cassette tapes, and I would listen to them and record myself 100,000 times until I thought my speech was a little close to that what I was listening to.
We worked very hard, didn't we?
Yeah.
Trying to find the side of the tape, right?
Exactly. You know, can you imagine cassette tapes, recording myself and listening and recording and listening? It was a crazy work, but it paid off, you know, over the years. And now, after all that, I feel that it was a great opportunity that I had to go to university, because all the things you listed, you know, linguistics, approaches, culture, literature, pedagogy, research, planning, etc. Also phonetics is something that we learn in university course that we not always learn in other courses, you know. That was really good for me, because as I knew nothing of English, that helped me to get a better speech, you know, more natural speech. And then I believe that one thing just complements the other. They are not opposite things, you know. There are things that if you can, you should do both of them, you know. And my colleague said that we don't have time to learn a lot, but I believe as we're teaching, we are learning. You know, I learn a lot from my classes. When I'm teaching, I'm learning. When I'm preparing a class, I'm learning. Because we teach high levels of English as well, you know. And I teach doctors, I teach tech people, and I don't know all the words, you know. So I have to prepare and I have to learn, and they teach me too. So I think this has been great listening to you two, and I don't think you're on opposite sides. I think you're just complementing each other.
So I get the feeling.
I love you.
Amanda, thank you for those comments, and I get the feeling you're going to find it very difficult to vote later.
Yes.
So,
but vote for me.
So vote for
find
me.
it difficult, yes, but vote for me.
There was another question. This lady on the end of the row here. I think you raised your hand earlier.
Good morning, my name is Roberta. And Alberto, I felt like I was watching my life when you were speaking. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yes, in fact, I graduated in psychology. And before I went to university, I had already been teaching English as private teacher, as a school teacher in an institution as well, with those slides my students used to You got it for 2 years, I got it for 6 months because my students were sleeping. It was Saturday morning, and it was very hard to keep them after the whole week of working and studying awake after the slides and the tapes. And then I got from the coordinator because I was turning the lights on and I was changing the way they were getting it. And I heard from the coordinator that I was just messing up with their way of teaching there. So I said, okay, it's not for me. And she said, no, it's not for you. And yeah, that was my first experience teaching English in an institution. And then I realized that more than learning the language only, because I took English courses up to the intermediate level, which was not only intermediate, for me it was a little bit more. I went to university and then I was teaching, and then I started teaching in another school with a communicative approach as well for teenagers for the first time. And then I was a psychologist. I wanted to be a psychologist, but then life, turned me into I'm not able to get money from psychology at this moment, and I need money to go with my life. And I have a little kid. At that moment, I had a little kid, and I needed money to feed her, to do everything. And then I
Same here.
became a teacher, yes, an English teacher again, yeah. I started as a replacing teacher at an institution, then I went to another institution, and I started doing that, practicing. And not only practicing, as Amanda said, I was learning, yeah, because I had my experience in education from psychology. So I knew many theories, yeah. But then practice showed better, and I took many courses. I used to go to Dissau when it was at Rua Vitória, guys. So it was a long time ago. Yes, I sleep on Formol, so that's why. But then, you see, I used to go there every week to research, to go for the books, to go for the materials, to check. I remember one of the coordinators I had in an institution told me that I couldn't teach higher levels because I didn't have any degrees on that. Then I went to another institution, and the coordinator took me. At the second week I was there, and she said, oh, I have a student. He needs practice in English in, oh my God, for his work, yeah? And I said, I've never taught that. And then she said, but I know you were capable of. I'll give you the materials, go home, study it. Because grammar is the same. What you need is vocabulary. You need the teaching skills. You need to will that, to want that. And then I did it. I studied it. And then I was able to teach him, yeah? And then I got another student on the same path. And then I got a group, and then I got another group, and then the school closed, and suddenly I had 40 students to teach. Different levels, different approach, different kinds of need. And I've been teaching that way for a while, and then I entered another institution where I started teaching 2-year-old children and teenagers. And I had a 2 weeks course for this job that I've been
And was that enough? Was that enough to prepare
15 years. Not enough.
Right.
Practice showed that it was really different. When we are in class, when we are teaching, when we are in the classroom, everything changes. Everything is different.
Yeah.
Every day is another day. Every class is another class. Yeah, not because you know your group. It doesn't mean that it's easy. Yeah, I've been studying.
Rebecca, I'm going to have to stop you there because I think we only have time for one more story.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what I'm picking up from what you're saying is something that Alberto touched on about the fact that you're still learning once you've jumped into that swimming pool and you have to swim.
Yeah, and
again,
nowadays,
Amanda mentioned that too.
And nowadays, I am an English teacher.
Exactly, and
that
that's come over
has
years
a
of
degree
experience.
in psychology. Yeah, because I've never stopped studying. That's the point.
Thank you, Rebecca. We have a question
Thank
right at
you.
the back. I can't see you, so please speak loud and clear.
Good morning.
Hello.
My name is Kaina, and I hold a teaching degree, and I also hold a CELTA certificate. I have
Both.
2 questions for you. I don't know if you'll have the answers, but I mean to be very thought-provoking. In terms of a teaching degree and comparing it to a CELTA certificate, I think what I benefited the most was receiving feedback on my lessons. It was an opportunity to put into practice what I had seen in theory and to really assess and be assessed on how well I'm doing. So my question to you, Clara, is why can't universities take more advantage of the internship opportunities? Because
Good question.
as a rule, we all have to go to public schools, private schools, and language institutes, and we have to be assessed by academic supervisors, and we have to show our lesson plans. But why is that such a different experience from when we have teaching practice in a CELTA certificate?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
question.
And to you, Alberto, maybe this is more complex,
He's
but
taking
I'm
notes.
taking
He's not
the
checking
Brazilian,
I'm not texting, I'm just making notes.
but I'm taking the Brazilian context into account. I feel very privileged for being able to hold a CELTA certificate, but not everyone is able to afford such a certificate. So thinking of Brazilian teachers, can you tell us more about career development opportunities and teacher training experiences that most teachers would be able to afford? Yeah.
That's a
you.
good question. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
good question.
Very good.
I think we'll stop collecting questions there because what I'm sensing is that actually they're all connected in a way with the fact that best intentions are sometimes ruined by reality. We don't always have the time or the opportunities or the experience or the finances to do all of the developmental things that we want to do. So connecting those themes, let's finish just by answering some of those points that have come up. And maybe perhaps starting at the beginning and going back, because that was a good question to Alberto, is what other opportunities are there besides the 2 that we've talked about today?
Well, I understand the fact that many of those qualifications, because they are international, they can be very expensive. I have been through that as a teacher, and one of the reasons why I decided to start teaching at a very young age was because I wanted a salary as well. And imagine that at the time, because I am very old as well, at the time I had to pay for those courses when every week we had a different currency in Brazil. So it was very difficult to keep saving money in order to pay for something that you wouldn't know how much you had to spend because the currency would be different and so on and so forth. And also, in the past, a lot of the, say, more accessible opportunities involved participating in teachers' events which happened locally, or maybe because book publisher or maybe a distributor was offering some kind of event for teachers. But nowadays, even if you are not financially prepared to take an international teaching certificate or diploma now, there are many options. I would start by mentioning the MOOCs, the massive open online courses, which are made available by many universities.
Yes.
So
My
MOOCs, they are shorter courses. You can get a certificate if you pay for the certificate. You can do it from the comfort of your home, or maybe you can do it together with other colleagues, and it's free. But you also have a number of other options, like, for example, the Cambridge Days and a few others. But MOOCs would be my main recommendation nowadays.
I think, Clara, you wanted to mention MOOCs as well, because they're often informed by university academics. And
Exactly.
So on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that one of the things I was going to answer a little bit Master's questions when he talked about how difficult it is to find time and finances. So I was going to say that the answer to all that is technology, because you're able to take courses not only here in Brazil, but pretty much anywhere in the world. Some of these courses are free, and you can do them whenever you find the time. And I know they are also time-consuming, and this is from my experience, because my degree that I am doing now is online. And before I started it, I thought I would learn much less than I'm actually doing. So I'm very happy to say that the opportunities that we have today in terms of online teaching can take you to places that you didn't even imagine. And the price is much more reasonable than it would be at a university. Mm-hmm. Can we stop there? I wanted to address his...
Of course, yeah. Carry on.
So thank you, everyone that talked. Márcio, Amanda, you made some good points. I think, yes, sometimes we don't have a choice. We have to do... And I think this was the same for us. I don't think my path, I really thought about it. No, I'm going to do this. I was doing the thing that came up that was possible, and then I started to sit down and say, well, where is my career going? So I think, yes, we do that. So it is true. And as teachers, it's something that we need to know that none of it is enough. We need to keep learning. Of course, we learn every day in the classroom. Yes, we do, with new material and events like this and meeting other people. Yes, but being a teacher is a choice that we made. And I think in any career, you can't stop learning. So the university degree would be just the beginning. The same thing as the 4-week course of the CELTA.
So we're still, I mean, obviously the nature of the debate is to present these two routes in opposition to each other. It's this or this.
Yeah.
That's how debates work. We know it's a little bit of a false premise.
Yeah.
However, maybe... you were talking, Marius, about timing. Maybe it's a question of first doing one, then doing the other. Mm-hmm. So it could be not one or the other, but sequence, perhaps. Mm-hmm. And equally, course, yes. Rebecca said a lovely phrase, which I wrote down, is, it's not for me. Mm-hmm. Do you think maybe there's an element of people taking the route that just feels more suitable to them because of their personal style of learning, or what skills they feel they want to develop? Maybe they've always followed a very academic path, and when they start teaching, they want to stop that and do something more classroom-based, or vice versa.
Of course, but you said something that maybe you feel that's not for you, but I will tell you this, that I was the worst student in the world in school, in high school, really, like the worst student in the world. So when I talk to people and I say that I got a doctorate, everybody go, you got what? People that I haven't seen like in 30 years. So this is something that is important to say. Maybe you think it's not for you. And maybe you think you're not able. So it's important to really think, is it really not for you? Because it's okay to take the other path, and we approve of this. It's okay to take the other path. But what are the reasons why you're choosing? Are they financial reasons, or are they because it's too far, or are they because you think you can't do it? So it's important to think, yes, you can.
So you might want to say, it doesn't feel like it's for me, but I'd like to challenge myself.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And I would like to add something to that, is that, for example, time is a problem for us professionals in general. We all have our time limitations. For example, if you've just had a baby, of course, it's very difficult to commit to an international diploma or maybe to a university degree because of circumstances. But nowadays, I think the way diversity is acknowledged in the world, everything is there for us. If you cannot be present in a certain country or in a certain city, I'm sure things will be made available to you somehow, because nowadays technology plays a very important role in providing us with content, experience, sharing of experience above all.
Thank you. I think, again, we're touching on this notion of reality, and maybe we ourselves have gone through an educational process where we didn't have that reality, and we need to remind ourselves of all the new opportunities that are available. Yeah. And I think, we're touching on this idea of circumstances, too. Sometimes the right things come at the wrong time. And I love that expression, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yeah, of course.
Or maybe in Brazil, if life gives you limes, make a caipirinha.
Caipirinha, yes.
Caipirinha.
So perhaps the lesson to take away is to make the most of the circumstances and the opportunities that we have. To conclude, however, I would like to find out in this room, generally, what is representative? Which of these routes do you feel resonates more with you? Now, we are also live streaming this event, and we're recording it to use the recording as a podcast later, which means that future audiences will not be able to see us. And that means that to vote, we need to use an audible system. So, clear your throats. In a moment, I will ask you if you agree more, if you feel more strongly that the route that Clara has described, that academic path, is more similar to your own path, your own feelings, your own preferences, I will ask you to say, ah.
Ah, please, ah for me.
As loud as you
ah,
can.
Yes.
As loud as you can. If, however, you feel that Alberto's story resonates more strongly with your own, then I'll ask you to say, ooh. Not
It's
at the same
ooh,
time.
It's not boo.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll say
Nobody would
boo.
boo you. No, you have to be quiet. You can't vote for yourself.
Very difficult.
Laura, can I just add something to what Roberta mentioned?
Yeah.
Something really, really quick that I made a note here. Roberta was mentioning this thing of when you are experimenting with different realities, ages, etc., you are learning. Yes, it's about learning constantly. I remember when I was in this very first school in the audiolingual method, one of my colleagues proposed doing something really advanced. And then I decided, okay, let's do it with my group and your group. It's, students at the same time, etc., same age range. And we decided to do something that was very disruptive for the school. We did a Find Someone Who activity in the patio. And then we got told off for that. So it was one of the reasons why I decided I would change schools.
Uh-huh. Okay, but you're not allowed to. They've made up their minds.
Yes.
It's too late now.
Stop talking now.
So, we'll do the ahs first, and then we'll do the oohs. Not at the same time. I can't understand ahs and oohs at the same time. So if you feel that your story, your experience, your preference is more closely linked to Clara's argument, we'll do 1, 2, 3, ah, okay? As loud as you can. 1, 2, 3. Oh, good. Okay. Whoa. Wait for it, Alberto. Now, the oohs. If you're siding more with Alberto, 1, 2, 3. I have no idea.
I have.
Have you?
Yes, I think he wins.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you secret option number 3. If you believe that these routes are complementary and that we always continue learning and we will have opportunities to do both, we need a new vowel. How about E? Ready?
E,
1,
yes.
2, 3. E. I think that one wins. So thank you very much to both of our speakers.
Thank you.
Congrats for us.
And thank you very much to you for attending and for contributing your stories. And remember that the stories continue online. This recording will be posted later and there will be space for ongoing discussion. So please do come back to the Cambridge website in future and contribute your own stories. We have a coffee break now. Please come back promptly at 10:45 for the next presentation. Thank you very much.